Good morning, members of the podcast world. Today, like other weeks, we're having chats with Baba. The purpose of these chats is brought to you by the Lighthouse for Academic and Cultural Excellence, is to inform and empower parents of young Black children. The information is applicable to all children. I focus on this particular audience because when you look at the data relative to foundations for literacy, our children are kind of behind. And this is an effort to catch them up. Parents are the first and foremost teachers in the lives of children. To inform parents is to enable them to release the natural genius that's in Black children. Black children have untapped and underdeveloped gifts. The quality of experience and exposure lays the foundation for life. And we want to move from miseducation to education. And the goal is to strive for excellence. Now, I start off each podcast with that statement. And part of that is to hopefully have parents who give some critical thought to what's being asked of them as the child's first and foremost teacher. And what happens for a child during the early years really lays, as I said in the comments, you lay the foundation for life. Now, having said that, this week, I don't remember his name, but a billionaire set aside $1 billion to educate students who meet the criteria, certain criteria, for the rest of their lives. Think about this, to educate them for the rest of their lives. That means college and any other things that they're engaging in. And on Good Morning America, they identified the first 5 or 6 high school students, given that they met the criteria of being provided with provisions to educate them for the rest of their lives. I've had an experience with a student, she's down up in Wisconsin, who was a Bill Gates scholar. And the Bill Gates scholar was awarded funding for 10 years. They can go to any school, any college, any university in the country, and the Bill Gates money will pay for them. And when I met her, a very incredibly bright young lady, I asked her, why Clark? I mean, when you had your choice of almost any university in the country, you had the right there in your own state, the University of Wisconsin, which is an outstanding academic institution. She said, I always wanted to go to an HBCU, a historically Black college or university. And she came, graduated as an honor student, returned to Wisconsin, and jump-started a number of initiatives based upon her education. She comes back to visit Georgia, visit the campus, and she always stops by to see me. And she's taken a leadership role in the state of Wisconsin based upon what she learned there. And I'm saying that to say that if when students are given a good start, a good beginning, they can kind of keep moving in that path towards excellence. You hear me say 4 things: help children to learn to pay attention, learn to listen, learn to follow directions, learn to start and finish a task. This is a process. And in doing so, what they are formulating are habits of the mind. You pay attention, that's a habit. You listen, that's a habit. You follow directions, that's a habit. You start and finish a task, that's a habit. So if they develop good habits of the mind, that just, those habits are part of their thinking as they are engaging in different things that they choose to learn. And I'm saying that to say that it's so the early years are really critical. I've talked about early literacy in terms of math, reading, science, and so forth and so on. Let me pause a moment and say a word about this pandemic. and I want to spend a lot of time on it, but I want to say to parents, this is an unusual event, an unusual episode in all of our lives, and it's having an effect on children. And I'm saying that to say that it's important that you as a parent observe and listen to your children relative to their concerns about what's affecting them and so forth and so on. My children are grown, and they have children who are now starting college. And almost on a daily basis, I text my grandchildren, how you doing, how you feeling, how are things going, letting them know that they do have a support system. When things aren't working out well, there's someone that they can turn to, i.e. their parents, i.e. their grandparents. And if they have other issues, we will try to make whatever resources that are needed to help them to work through whatever's affecting them. I'm saying that to say children, young children, if things are bothering them, take time when they come home from school to listen to things that's affecting them. So I just wanted to pause for a moment to say that. Now, I left off talking about mathematics, but it's not just math. It's also important to look at early literacy, and math is just a part of that. Okay, math is just a part of the early literacy that I want you to pay attention to as we get through this. And in terms of paying attention, hopefully you're helping your children to develop healthy habits toward learning. And these are habits of the mind that's applicable to math, science, technology. It doesn't matter. Now, keep in mind that the children are living in a changing world, and the changes are rapid. I mean, it's almost like rapid fire. The key is preparation. So when they encounter different things, they have the skill, the knowledge and skills to effectively deal with the situation. So I just want to go back over some things relative to early literacy, the behaviors and skills that are being developed, and the importance of it. So early literacy, we're talking about knowing the names of things. We're talking about being interested in and enjoying books. So in order to do that, you have to read to them. You have to read to them when you have time. You know, you don't want to spend time reading to them when you're really not in the mood. And so it's important that in order for them to develop a good habit about reading, read to them frequently, helping them to notice the difference between letters, words, and numbers, helping them to know how to handle a book, helping them to follow words on a page. You move from left to right, from top to bottom, and helping them to be able to describe things and events that are in any story that you read to them, helping them to know that letters have names and different sounds. Numbers have names and have different meanings depending upon the value of the number. So I'm saying all that to say that all of these things, it's repetition. Okay, it's absolutely repetition. All parents are concerned that as they are doing these things, will my child be ready when they get to kindergarten? That's just a normal tendency for parents to wonder. So let me kind of talk about some things in math, or math concepts, or math terminology that you may not even be aware of. I want to go back from the time that their baby's coming forward. Now, some of the things I'm going to talk about, you say, well, that doesn't make sense for children. But the point is, children are very observant, okay, of things that's in their environment. They have not developed the level of language and speaking yet, but they are gathering and taking information based upon what they see, and on and on and on. For example, let's just talk about the term of prediction and sequence. What does that have to do with the baby? Well, after a while, they can put together, okay, there are certain times of the day that I will eat. There's certain times of the day that I will get a bath. So these become a habit. Okay, now it's time for mama or someone, my care provider, to run the water or to prepare my food. So they begin to understand what they call cause and effect. If we do this, this is the result of it. For example, if they pick up a rattle and shake it, they will basically hear a noise, cause and effect. They also begin to classify some things. For example, there are some toys that make noise and there are other toys that don't. So what does this have to do with anything? This is classification. The baby, I'm smiling because you say classify. Yes, they know this cause and effect. By doing certain things, this is a result of that. They begin to understand something about baby size. They see that you are a bigger person than them. So they begin, there's a comparison that's going on. They may not say that, but that's what's going on. They begin to understand words that describe quantity, more, less, bigger, enough. When you're feeding them, you can almost predict how many tablespoons of food they will eat. You can almost predict how much you need to take out of the jar or whatever. So these are concepts and terminology that children are developing and storing in their mind. Moving on to the period of toddlerhood, they begin to understand the concept of how many. Okay, they begin to use their fingers and toes to deal with the concept of counting and how many. They begin to understand you're reciting numbers to them. You may do it in sequence. They may copy what you're saying to them. They may skip or miss some numbers, but that's okay. That is okay. And you don't have to correct them because the corrections will take care of themselves as time goes on. They begin to understand the concept of measuring, pouring, larger cup, smaller cup. They begin to understand that when you put so much milk in the bottle or so much milk in the cup, and sometimes they want more, sometimes they want less. These are mathematical terms. They also begin to see things that you share with them in the environment that are mathematically based without you ever having to say it. When you have different size pots, different size cups, different size spoons, they hold things relative to amounts, more, less, and so forth and so on. So my point is, as you're doing these things, children begin to see patterns, okay? They begin to recognize things that they see on and on and on. They begin to see you doing things, and those things happen within a certain time frame. Those things happen with in terms of sequence. Those things happen in terms of how you go about organizing and preparing for them. Now, what am I saying? Let me go back to what I said earlier. When they see you doing these things, they are also forming habits of the mind. Okay, I mean that may seem small, but that is what they're going on. When they begin comparing smaller, larger, they are forming habits of analyzing. Well, this holds more, this holds less. This is taller, this is shorter. Containers, cups, pots. Children are watching as you are doing things in terms of preparing. Now, what does it have to do with math? It has a lot to do with math. It has a lot to do with the concepts that they're forming. It has a lot to do with what comes first, what comes second, what comes third, sequencing, order. These are mathematical concepts. When you are food preparation, you have different size containers and so forth and so on. What does that have to do with math? It has a lot to do with math. It's about the foundations that you're laying out for literacy in mathematics. And what you basically want is children, you want them to develop a healthy attitude towards math, towards science, towards technology. Even when they're trying to work out and do problem solving, things don't always go well or always go right. And that's also a learning experience in and of itself. When things don't go right, what do? We have to problem solve, okay? And that's where your role comes in, not to show frustration or pass on negative thoughts, but to help them to work through whatever it is that has causes an impasse that keeps them from moving forward. So my point is, it goes back to the formulation of habits and their inability to work through certain things. They will begin to put together things that make sense. Counting, there's a sequence to counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so forth and so on. They'll begin to understand that concept. They'll begin to understand what number follows the other. And so you'll go from 1 to 10 or 1 to 20 and so forth and so on. Once they internalize the concept of order, and we have a math system that's based on the base 10. When we get a group of 10, we go to the next sequence: 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and so on, so forth and so on. They will begin to understand that sequencing of 10 all the way up to 100. So once they internalize that, then you can go back and just start by counting by twos: 2, 4, 6. And when you're doing this, I'm sort of going, I'm sort of getting ahead of myself a little bit. But when you're doing this, numbers in and of themselves are abstracts. But if they can see two things, and then associate the number 2 with 2 items, well, the same thing with 3 things, three things, and so they begin to make these mental pictures and association. And so then so that is internalized. 2 will always, once you internalize 2, it'll always be 2. Once you internalize 10, it will always be 10. And so it just takes time. It just takes time and repetition over and over and over. So it's repeated information that enables them to learn and have a healthy attitude about math terminology, math concepts, and problem solving skills. I hope this makes sense to you out there in the podcast audience, because it's your children will be living in a time and space where math is critical. Math concepts is critical. Math terminology is critical. And it becomes a resource that they can call on. You hear a lot, you might even hear older children coming home talking about STEM or talking about STEAM, STEM, STEM, deals with math, science, technology. STEAM deals with the same thing, but they add the A for arts. Okay, so when you hear those things, undergirding all of that is a solid foundation in literacy. So today, what I try to do is to review some steps of paying attention, listen, follow directions, start a task, and finish a task. We want to, in doing so, repetition is important. You're forming habits of the mind. So I'm going to stop there, and we'll pick up next week with the math terminology for preschool and kindergarten. So with that, I'm going to bring today's podcast to a close. And you can always visit my website, drjamesyoung.com, and there are books and other resource materials that are on the website, and hopefully they can have some value to you. So with that, enjoy the week. Have a good day. Bye now.